Good day, everyone. Today, our group will be presenting a critical analysis of an original Malay article titled Kemajuan ICT Bawa Perspektif Baru Konsep Kebebasan Media, and its translated English title being The Advancement of ICT Brings a New Perspective to the Concept of Media Freedom. So we will analyze this article based on these 6 main areas, which are meaning, sentence structure, language style and genre, cultural context, technical terminology, and the key challenges and strategies used in the translation. So let us start on the first part of our presentation.
Thank you, Shahira, for the introduction. So, as for my part, I will begin with the meaning and sentence structure. Okay, the first one is overall meaning and tone. When I compared the original article to the translation, I found out that the general meaning is accurately maintained, but there are some subtle shifts in tone and directness. For example, the Malay phrase penurunan mendadak 34 anak tangga carries a strong, almost empathic emotional weight regarding the significant drop in the ranking. However, in English, it is translated simply to a sharp decline of 34 places, which sounds factual and slightly more neutral. The core information remains intact, but the rhetorical impact is slightly diminished. Another notable shift is in the presentation of criticism. The Malay sentence referring to government control likely uses indirect or cautious wording, such as dakwaan or allegations. Kerajaan kerap didakwa menggunakan kawalan ketara terhadap media. But the English translation is more direct and assertive. The government imposes significant control. This makes the translated English text sound more straightforward and less cautious than the presumed original Malay text. Crucially, the translation successfully preserved all key technical and conceptual meanings, such as the distinction between conventional media and the digital media era, and the legal references like the Official Secrets Act. Number two is the sentence structure and flow. The Malay sentences typical of formal commentary tend to be long and multi-clausal, often containing several ideas linked within one sentence. In the English translation, these long flowing sentences are frequently broken down into shorter, more direct sentences. This restructuring not only improves clarity and readability for the English reader, but fundamentally changes the article's rhythm. The Malay structure often builds its ideas gradually. Conversely, the English translation favors subject, verb, object clarity, and direct information delivery. We consciously move away from heavy nominalization using nouns instead of verb, and complex passive structures to favor a more active and concise voice, which is characteristic of the English journalistic genre. In summary, while the translation is accurate in conveying information, the necessary structural and linguistic adaptation resulted in a version that has a more factual, direct tone and diminished gradual rhetorical flow compared to the source text.
Hmm. Putri, I want to follow up your analysis regarding the emotional way. You mentioned the Malay phrase penurunan mendadak 34 anak tangga lost some of its rhetorical impact when translated to a sharp decline of 34 places. So my question is, could we have used a stronger English word than sharp decline like plung plundered by 34 places to better maintain that original rhetorical impact?
Well, there is a very insightful question, Ali. Thank you. And the short answer is yes, we absolutely could have, and perhaps I think we should have changed that because our original choice is a sharp decline, achieves high formal equivalence. It is professional and accurate. However, the Malay word mendadak implies a sudden, dramatic shock or speed. That's the emotional weight that was reduced. So, by using a strong and active verb like plunge by 34 places, would have achieved better dynamic equivalence. Plunge conveys a rapid, uncontrolled movement, directly matching the sudden severity implied by mendadak. Given that the entire article is a reaction to this ranking drop, using the more dramatic verb aligns better with the article's overall urgent and critical tone. So for our final submission, I agree that revising this specific phrase to use a more powerful verb like plunge would be a necessary linguistic enhancement to preserve the article's original persuasive force.
Alright, thank you, Kiki. I'll continue with the translation challenges and the strategies we use. One major challenge in translating this article is its political sensitivity. The content involves government criticism, media control, and the use of restrictive laws. Because of this, the translators must be very careful not to distort the original tone or make the English version sound harsher than intent. For example, the Malay article uses indirect expressions such as kebebasan dan kawalan terhadap akhbar di negara sering dipersoalkan. If translated literally, it becomes the freedom and control of the press in this country are often questioned. Although this is accurate, in English it sounds more confrontational. confrontational. Malay political writing carries caution and politeness, so we need to avoid unintentionally strengthening the tone. Another example is the sentence kerajaan dikatakan menggunakan pelbagai alasan untuk menyekat kebebasan media. A direct translation would be the government is said to use various reasons to restrict media freedom. This sounds very direct and accusatory in English. Therefore, the translators uh, must carefully balance clarity with a diplomatic tone that still respect the original intention. Another difficulty is the use of technical terminology, especially legal references. The article mentions laws such as Akta Hasutan 1948, Akta Rasmi 1972, dan Akta Mesin Cetak dan Penerbitan 1984. This must be translated using their official English name, which are the Sedition Act 1948, the Official Secrets Act OSA 1972, and the Printing Presses and Publication Act 1984. Using unofficial or incorrect translation would affect the accuracy of the text. So this is required careful verification. So to overcome these challenges, we use several translation strategies. Literal translation was used when dealing with official names, organization, and factual information. This ensures accuracy and preserve the proper terminology. Phrasing was applied to long and complex Malay sentences to improve readability in English. For instance, the sentence kehadiran internet kini mengambil alih peranan media konvensional sebagai medium utama menyebarkan maklumat kepada masyarakat was phrased into the presence of the internet has taken over the role of conventional media as the main medium for disseminating information to the public. This creates a smoother and clearer flow in the target language. Tonal adjustment was another crucial strategy, especially because of the political nature of the text. An example is the phrase kerajaan kerap didakwa mengenakan kawalan ketara. A literal version would be ia berikutan kerajaan kerap didakwa mengenakan menekan kawalan ketara, but this was adjusted to this is due to frequent allegation that the government imposes to maintain the more neutral and polite tone found in Malay original. Lexical simplification simplification was also used to ensure the translation is accessible to non-Malaysian readers, such as translating ketara into the simpler word significant. Overall, the translation required a delicate balance of accuracy, readability, and cultural sensitivity. Our goal was to preserve the integrity of the Malay article while making the English version clear and accessible to a wider audience. So, does anyone have a questions? Okay, Mia.
I have a question, Ellie. So before you continue,
Mhm.
I just want to ask, out of all strategies that you have used for this translation, which one do you think was the most important for this political article, and why do you think that it is important?
Hmm. For this article, the most important strategy was tonal adjustment because it deals with political issues and government criticism. The Malay text expresses these ideas politely and indirectly. If we translate everything literally, the English version may sound harsher and more accusatory than intended. Tonal adjustment ensures that the translated text maintains the same level of politeness, neutrality, and professionalism while still conveying the message clearly.
Right, thank you, Ellie. Now we'll talk about language style and genre. The original Malay article fits the genre of political commentary. It serves as both an informative piece and opinion-based reflection. The style is formal, respectful, and sophisticated, typical of Malaysian political writing. Malay political language tends to be indirect, even when expressing criticism. The author chooses polite phrase like dalam konteks ini masih terdapat kebimbangan and pasti ada kewajaran. This indirectness is a common feature in Malay public discourse, where writers aim to maintain harmony, avoid confrontation, and show respect toward institutions.
Okay, so how does the use of long layered sentence and passive construction in the article contribute to a sense of objectivity? And how does this stylistic choice reflect the typical framing of government policy discussion in Malaysian media?
That's an interesting question, Ellie. This article uses the long layered sentences with passive construction, which help create sense of objectivity. This style mirrors how Malaysian media often frames discussions about government policies, carefully balanced, cautious, and non-confrontational. It allows the writers to present concerns about media control without sounding overly aggressive or accusatory. When the article is translated into English, the style becomes more informative and direct. English readers expect clearer sentences and straightforward explanation. So the translation uses shorter sentences and a more neutral tone. Some Malay expressions that carry cultural softness or implicit criticism become more explicit once written in English. As a result, the English version sounds more analytical and factual rather than reflective. So, in short, the Malay version feels more like reflective commentary, blending facts and with subtle persuasion. Meanwhile, the English version feels more like an article report, focusing on clarity, structure, and logical explanation. Some rhetorical elements, such as persuasive phrase, cultural politeness, and emotional nouns are softened or lost in translation because English does not carry the same layers of indirect meaning. This means the translated article is still accurate, but it carries slightly different voice and less of original persuasive flavor. Overall, The translation adapts the style appropriately for its audience, but naturally changes the article original tone, cultural nuances, and persuasive impact. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful analysis, Villa. So now it is my turn, and I will be discussing the cultural context that plays a huge role in interpreting the article itself. So, in Malaysia, the political culture places a wonderful emphasis on the respect for authorities, maintaining national harmony, and to avoid direct confrontation, and to always have wonderful discussion on sensitive issues. So, therefore, uh, all of these aspects influences how political topics Malay articles. So, for instance, when the article states the media freedom cannot be absolute. So this reflects Malaysia's cultural understanding that freedom may disrupt harmony because this is a multiracial country. However, when this is translated into English, the deeper cultural meaning may not fully carry over. So international readers may not fully understand why such caution is emphasized or why criticisms are phrased indirectly. So the article also discusses how the internet has changed Malaysian society. Why? Because with ICT advancement, how Malaysians now have more extensive access to information, and they can voice over their opinions more freely than they used to before the internet advancement. So this cultural shift has minimized the government's ability to control information. But then again, this context might not be immediately obvious to international readers. So, in conclusion, the translation has successfully delivers their surface meaning but deeper cultural nuances, especially when understanding deep into the harmony, authority, and political caution that are not always fully reflected to non-Malay speakers. So I will pass it to the next person.
Thank you, Mia. That was a really insightful introduction, and I appreciate you setting the stage clearly for this discussion. Next, I'll be explaining the technical terminology found in the article and how it was handled in translation. This article contains many terms from media studies, law and policy, ICT and digital communication, and government and regulatory system. This includes terms like World Press Freedom Index, WPFI, Official Secrets Act, Official Secret Acts, OSA, Printing Presses and Publication Act, Communication and Multimedia Act, Media Ecosystem, and Journalistic Standards. When translating such terms, accuracy is extremely important because many are formal act titles or official terminology, necessitating the use of standard English equivalents. Another important point is consistency. Terms like media freedom, information flow, and digital landscape must be standardized throughout the translation to avoid confusion. Some Malay phrases also require interpretive choices rather than literal translation. For example, kawalan ketara was rendered as significant control and penyertaan masyarakat became public participation. These are accepted equivalents in policy discussion. Overall, the translator successfully maintained technical accuracy, which is crucial for a text aimed at readers familiar with media policy and political commentary. This high level of precision ensures that the original text legal, Policy-related arguments are conveyed without any loss of meaning or misinterpretation. By adhering to established terminology, the translation retains the necessary authority and credibility expected in a political and policy analysis, making it fully accessible and trustworthy to the target professional audience.
Okay, thank you, Shaira, and also thank you everyone for your insightful analysis for today. And therefore, our analysis shows that the translation accurately conveys the main message of the original article, but there are natural shifts in tone, clarity, cultural nuance, and rhetorical style. So the English version becomes clearer and more accessible, while the Malay version, the original text version, retains its persuasive, formal, and culturally sensitive tone. This demonstrates that translation is not just about changing the language, but it also involves adapting meaning across different cultural, political, and linguistic contexts. So, thank you everyone for today's meeting. That is all.
Thank
It is all.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.